All right, we're going to go ahead and get started real soon because it seems like nobody else will be coming in at the immediate moment. And I got a lot to say. All right, so good morning. Did you all sleep? So? Well, you will tonight, I guarantee it. All right, so. Okay. All right. So, good morning, all. I'm Mark. I'll be your operator today. I'm very excited to see what you guys are capable of. You know, if Gribble is right and all. Very exciting times. We got a lot of work to do. Let's get to it. All right. Watch your steps, how I sidestep potential legal pitfalls and live to publish another day. Introduction. In today's lecture, I will present an anthology of 4 separate but complete stories about my experiences of what I did to overcome legal hurdles to publish my book successfully. Each story is distinguished from the next, but tied together by the theme of evading the law. Disclaimer, I'm not giving any legal advice in this talk. I'm simply going to state how I personally circumvented trouble with the law in my professional unlicensed life. All right, this is today's program. Story number 1 is going to be about licensing. Story number 2 is going to be about libel. Story 3 is going to be about U.S. public domain. And then story 4 is also about U.S. public domain. I have to tell you, I got a lot that I want to say, but I might not get around to it. So I might even have to chop this 4th story off in order to get your questions. So let's see. Story number 1, licensing. The very first book that I wrote and published in 2011 was a companion guide to Miles Davis's autobiography. And not only did I dig the autobiography, but I thought the cover on it was on some gangster-ish. So I couldn't help but think how much I wanted to use that photograph on the cover of my soon-to-be published book. So this is the cover of the Miles Davis autobiography that was released in '89. It looks pretty cool. He looks like a gangster with that hat and that suit jacket on. I like that. That's pretty cool. So if you discovered a particular photograph that you wanted to use on the cover of your book, what would you do? And my answer, try to contact whoever took it or their estate if the creator is dead, or try to find if a company is controlling the image that's willing to license it out. And to license and use a photographic image from this acclaimed photographer, Giles Lorraine. He's the guy that took that photograph. And he also photographed such famous people as John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Glenn Close, Stan Lee, Salvador Dali, Billy Joel, Miles Davis, and Sting. Do you think you can afford licensing a photograph from this guy? Do you think you can? No? Nobody thinks that? Well, as a photographer myself, I charge about $100 an hour just to take the photographs. But if I wanted to license one of my photographs to somebody, I would charge accordingly, depending on who the individual is or how big the corporation is. How much do you think this guy is going to charge me for a John Lennon photograph, or in my real life case, a Miles Davis image, the best-selling jazz musician of all time? How much do you think it would cost to license an image of Miles Davis? Just take a guess. Anything is okay. $500? $5,000. Going once, going twice. Anything more? $500,000. All right, good. We got a winner sold. I'll see you after the show. All right. Before I tell you how much, I can give you this tip. You won't get it if you believe their work is out of reach. If you don't bother inquiring, you'll not get it. I'm not guaranteeing that you can get it, but, you know, a closed mouth doesn't get fed, or a lazy hustler doesn't get bread. So if you don't ask, you'll never know. I discovered Giles had a website, and I went there and I found an attached email address through which I could reach him. I reached out to him, and this is what he said verbatim. I gotta read this. No, sorry, this is what I said verbatim to him. And it's pretty important just so that you could see how you should approach this. I written this on October 13th, 2010. Dear Giles Lorraine, I will do my best to keep this letter short and to the point. I'm a young 27-year-old man who's not very wealthy. I made it apparent from the very beginning, and doesn't have a lot of money. I was hoping with that said you would be willing to cut me a deal and bargain with me just a little bit. I'll explain further. Currently, I'm writing my first soon-to-be published book, yada, yada, yada. It's only going to be about 30 pages. I'm not a big publisher house company. I'm just one person, so I won't be able to mass produce these books. The most I can afford, what I make from my day job as a teacher at the time, is to print about 500 copies of the book. So once I manage to get those books sold, I'll, re-spool the money and try to make more. What any of this has to do with you is that I'm very interested in using one of your photographs of Miles Davis. And let's just skip ahead here. So I said you have 3 choices of 3 different photographs that I've seen, if I could have any one of those. So I shot this email off. What do you think happened next?
Free.
I wish it was free. Say that again? Silence.
Cease and desist.
Cease and desist. Well, you would be surprised to know that his secretary or representative got back to me within a day's time on his behalf. I've never spoke to the photographer himself, just to his representation, but it was a smooth communication like whiskey. So she wrote to me October 14th. Dear Mark, thank you for contacting Giles about his Miles Davis photographs. We are delighted that you are interested in using one of the images for your book cover. Since Giles is an advocate for encouraging others to carry forth with their creative prowess and vision, we would like to help you with this project. Our usage fee for a cover shot for your book will be $500 plus photo credit. Good on you. Please email me details about the file size, if you would be so kind as to give the information, working title, size of the book, number of copies, publishing date. Many thanks. Diligently wrapping up this story, we did some small dialoguing back and forth, and a formal to-the-point contract was sent over. The only deviation from that initial email to me paying out $500 is I also had to send them 50 physical copies of the book, which cost me another $500 just to produce those 50 books. So with all that said, to license a photograph of Miles Davis cost me $1,000. Some quick notes. If my email to him started with me stating, I work for Simon & Schuster, and we'd like to license one of your Miles Davis photos for a new book, I could see him asking for thousands of dollars instead of $500, because who you are, who you represent, and what you represent is everything. He charged me accordingly because he knew at the time I was just a poor teacher. The tricks in licensing and getting what you want for the best price are these. Be honest about who you are and your situation. Be sincere. State clearly what you want and be as concise as you can as not to waste their time. And on the left here, this is the Miles Davis autobiography in paperback, and then this is my book in paperback on the right-hand side. So this is the photograph that I licensed from Giles Lorraine. If you put these books on the shelf next to one another, they look like they belong together. And this is the hardcover on the left of the Miles Davis autobiography and the hardcover of my book, of my companion guide. So this is a bonus. From the Miles Davis autobiography, I used a selection of 3 excerpts, totaling about 110 words total from 4 different pages of the book, used as epigraphs and excerpts of 52 words to be integrated within the text of my book. I contacted Simon & Schuster for permission to use these quotes. They drew up a legal licensing contract and charged me a fee of $450 just to use 110 words out of their Miles Davis autobiography. So in total, it cost me about $1,500 just to make this book. All right, that's the end of that story. Now this is the meat and potatoes of it all. The threat, libel. This story is going to be a doozy. What is libel? Well, in my own layman's terms, or as they like to say, lamest terms, libel is printed defamation instead of verbal defamation. Spoken defamation is slander. The intro, as I was writing my second book, 50 Japanese Whiskies Tasted in Japan, I needed some resources. The writing, layout, and typography of this book are 100% my own, with over 90% of the photos featured also being my own, having been taken by my own hand and camera. But I needed a few pictures of distilleries I hadn't visited yet. So I reached out to these distillers to ask for them. This is the cover of my 50 Japanese Whiskies book, just to show you that I made everything. This is a self-portrait, and I did the typography. Yeah, I put together everything myself, just to let you see what it looks like. This is a sample of some pages taken out of my book. On the left-hand side, I have an image that I took of the whiskey that I'm reviewing. I have a little write-up about the whiskey, and at the bottom I have my tasting notes and the name of the whiskey at the top right. So Suntory, Nikka, and Chichibu, three of the biggest Japanese distillers of whiskey, and Kavalan in Taiwan, gave me no problems. They got back to me immediately with courtesy images I could use free of charge. This harkens back to precisely what I said in the first story. I was honest and sincere and stated clearly what I needed. They all gave them to me royalty-free, along with the first story. This now makes me 5 for 5 in getting what I want. That's what humbleness can get you. All right. These are some images from one of the distilleries that I could not visit. This one, called the Chita Distillery, is owned by Suntory, but this is like an industrial distillery in which ordinary people like us are not allowed to come on the premises. So they were kind enough to send me images of their distillery. Plus, I couldn't get up there to take that vantage point of all of these different things, so they were kind enough to license this image to me. And this is an image of a distillery in Taiwan, an honorary distillery that I feature inside of my book. I couldn't go to Taiwan just to take one photo, so I said, can I have an image? And they sent this to me, this beautiful image. So just two examples of images that I got for free. However, there was one distillery that gave me trouble. I contacted a faraway distillery. I can't say where it's at, but it's here, intra-Japan. And I couldn't make it to it because I wasn't going to visit there just to ask them for this one image. So the return of what I would be getting back from going there is not worth it for me. So I asked if they could just send me this courtesy image. They replied to me with loads of requests. Dear Mark, thank you for writing about us in your book. Would you please tell us a little bit more about your book and yourself? For where will you sell the book? What is the purpose of the book? And would it be possible for us to check what will be written before you publish this? You will be very welcome if you would like to visit our distillery. Thank you. When I got that reply, I knew immediately that I was in for some trouble because it strikes me as controlling. How can I be an honest, independent whiskey reviewer with integrity if they're going to want to dictate what comes out of my mouth? So I didn't even want to entertain it and play this game with them. I did, however, send them the 3 reviews of the whiskeys of theirs that I tried. Some things that could be found in my reviews were my sharing the public sentiments about how the public feels about this distillery and their whiskey. They weren't necessarily my words. I was just regurgitating real public opinion about them, and they didn't like that at all. So, but I told them in my reply, I won't change anything for any distillery as it would compromise my integrity in writing. Oh, but they wanted to change it so much that their lawyer in Osaka had sent me a cease and desist letter telling me not to print anything about their distillery inside of my book. And I'll admit, when I got that letter in hand, my heart just sank to the floor. I didn't know it was a cease and desist. I thought I was being sued. So there was that. I was scared, yeah. Once I just read that letter and it said law office on there, it was game over for me. So these are some of the classified documents the FBI seized from Mar-a-Lago. Declassified. And on the left-hand side, this is, I know you can't see it, but I'm going to read it out for you. The left-hand side is a sample review that I've written about one of their whiskeys, and on the right-hand side is my overview of their whiskey distillery. The Blank is a new Japanese whiskey brand that came on the scene in the second half of the 2010s. The company behind it, Blank, began their business by making other liquor and spirits such as Japanese soju. The brand has come a long way by making some progress through awards, though this and some of their other whiskeys, such as the other 2 I review in the following pages, have some controversy surrounding them. It is uncertain for some people where the base whiskey being sourced is coming from. As per articles and reviews on internet websites, No Communication, Master of Malt, The Whiskey Wash, Caskers, The Spirit Company, and others saying it's Scotch. So they're saying that this whiskey that's supposed to be Japanese whiskey is actually Scotch. Let's see, I lost my place here. So even their Japanese Google review of their distillery has gotten a lot of negative press, and they've been like, one star to hell on there. They claim to me it all comes from Enter Japan. And they wrote me inside of an email and said, our president purchased base whiskey back in the 80s when whiskey wasn't selling well in Japan. And to back up the stocks, we currently purchase base whiskey from our partnership distilleries in Japan. My advice is if they want to further succeed, they should be more transparent with the public, as it would alleviate a lot of confusion. And then about the distillery. The Blank Distillery is a tiny one located at the foothills of blank in blank of Japan. It is a new whiskey brand from the mid-2010s. The company behind it, Blank, was incorporated in Blank. They began to distill whiskey in 2017 at their new whiskey distillery, but their age statement whiskey is sourced from elsewhere. This is where most criticisms against them stem from, as some people don't believe it's Japanese. I asked where their whiskey comes from. They told me, using domestically produced ingredients for whiskey making is our goal, and we actually have been trying to plant and grow barley, in Blank, and also to use domestically produced peat, and now we have a peat kiln, so just going on. It's these distilleries I want to know the names of, the ones that they say that they source from. Still, the whiskey is gaining some traction inside the world, however people may feel about them. And this is taken from my Facebook group of about 5,000 members on Facebook. This group is called the Yamazaki Whiskey Group. And there's a lot of people here that share how they feel about this brand. Let me read some select ones. Let's see. Weird whiskey, this one. I mean, I know it's not Japanese whiskey, but it's very complex and has really unbalanced and undefined flavors. Not my cup of tea. And then the guy leaves another comment a year later. I wouldn't trust anything that comes from them. All right, let's see. Another guy, another phony repackager of imported scotch with absurd age statements that exceed their own history. Let's see, is there something else? To many people in the industry, there will never be the definition of Japanese whiskey. All right, anything else? All fake and overpriced, either rice whiskey or imported scotch rebottled in Japan. So I can pull up about 100 of these different comments about how people feel about them. I felt I had justification to write what I did, and I still do, but the realization that I'm a foreigner in Japan, I don't think the system is in my favor. And the idea that I would need to pay, that I would need to pay money just to lower you up and miss work to entertain going to court, is it worth it? To fight it, which would pretty much destroy them, would mean to destroy me in the process. It was better just to let it go. I can feed my ego or myself, but I can't do both. Question, this is Japan. Don't I have the freedom of the press to print the truth about this whiskey distillery selling scotch? Do you think I can print the truth about that?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, if you want to live, yeah, everybody has a choice, but the answer is no. Japan may be a so-called first world country, but it's not as free as you might assume. On 3rd of May 2022, Reporters Without Borders, RSF, published its World Freedom Press Index, which saw Japan drop from 67th place to 71st place out of 180 countries. According to them, authorities generally respect the principles of media freedom and pluralism, although tradition and business interests often prevent journalists from completely fulfilling their role as watchdogs. And I have my sources down there at the bottom. A different website, under Article 231 of the Criminal Code of Japan, a person who defames another by alleging facts in public shall, regardless of whether such facts are true or false, be punished by imprisonment with or without work for not more than 3 years or a fine of not more than 500,000 Japanese yen. And if the act relates to matters of public interest and has been conducted solely for the benefit of the public, the truth or falsity of the alleged facts shall be examined, and punishment shall not be imposed if they are proven to be true. So, question, what does all this mean? Shouldn't the distillery lying to the public about their business practices be punished by the law and you rewarded for telling the truth? And the answer, no. Only in certain circumstances could I expose, criticize, and win. If, for example, a hospital is knowingly lying to you, to patrons about their medicine, and people are going over there and they're getting sick, with some people even dying, if I was to expose that, I might be protected in that situation as it pertains to public safety and the public at large. But in my case, this distillery's lying to the public about where their whiskey comes from is not harmful to the public safety. They could sue me because I damaged their reputation and ability to make money, which would affect their workers and their families. All right, so Japanese libel law as truth as a defense. While the United States approach to libel embraces the notion of competitive ideas and individual injury in the diverse marketplace of ideas, the Japanese vision focuses upon restoring the injured individual's reputation in a homogeneous, cohesive society. As discussed previously, U.S. law views libel in terms of the injured individual vis-a-vis the media defendant. In contrast, Japanese law regards defamation more in terms of the effect it has on reducing respect for the individual in the community or lowering the person in the estimation of others. This treatment is based on Japan's cultural emphasis on group cohesion over personal autonomy and is manifested in the remedies afforded libeled parties under Japanese law, including public apology. In short, although the Japanese press enjoys a great deal of autonomy, the legal balance between press freedom and individual reputation tilts more towards the latter than in the United States. Unfortunately, everything I told you thus far is just the tip of the iceberg. There's an English article still on the internet that I can recommend. If you guys want these slides, I can give it to you along with these links to all of these sites. So this one down here is very concise and will hit all the key points, giving you the gist of it all. And there's another one. Then there's the longer 35-page PDF from the Michigan Journal of International Law that has everything inside of there that you want to read if you want to go more in depth with that. Do your own research and ultimately ask a lawyer. I'm not responsible for anything I told you today, and I wash my hands of it. The moral of this story is if you want the smoke, you can get it. If you want to avoid the law altogether, don't write anything negative about anyone or any entity in Japan. If I had lived in the United States and published my book there and never had any intentions of moving to Japan, I would publish those reviews because I know I would be protected. The only armor you have here is the common sense not to get involved. All right, that is the end of that. This is story number 3, License to Still. This is about the U.S. Public Domain Part 1, based on original characters created by Ian Fleming. I even have a theme song for this. All right, but anyways. Believing I'm the first black writer to publish a book solely on the topic of whiskey. I'm not talking about interviews, blogs, websites, magazine articles, or cocktail recipe books, but a bona fide book. I wanted to verify my claim so I can say it when I tell people that with certainty. I did my due diligence research, and I still hold my claim until proven wrong. I wish everyone luck with trying to prove me wrong on that. In my search for said whiskey book, I came across Fawn Weaver, who I was already aware was supposed to be the first African American to write a book, but ultimately she shelved the idea to found a whiskey brand instead, followed by founding a whiskey distillery named Uncle Nearest, which is named after an enslaved person who taught Jack Daniels everything he knows about whiskey distillation. I also discovered a peculiar name I didn't know about before, Tom Bullock. Tom was a bartender born in the 19th century who later became the first African American to publish a cocktail recipe guide in 1917, just before Prohibition. I had found my spirit brother, pun intended, in multiple ways through literal time with Tom, with us both having written books about spirits categorically in mixology and whiskey, respectively. Within 20 minutes about learning about Tom and reading an article about him, I wanted to re-release his book under my imprint since we're both the first. I started working on it the same day. It wasn't the light undertaking I thought it would be. It took me about 8 months to complete something that I thought that I could quickly do. I ultimately expanded a book that originally was 52 pages of matter into a book of 190 pages. Not only did I release that special centennial edition of his book called The Ideal Bartender, but I also re-released the second published cocktail recipe guide by an African American from Tom's contemporary, Julian Anderson, originally published in 1919, called Julian's Recipes. The question is, could I really just steal these books and re-release them for monetary gain? I have them right here, at least the hardcovers. I just snatched these books and I spruced them up a little bit. I added some meat to them and I re-released them and now I'm selling them. Could I just steal these books and just make off with the money? What do you think?
Are they public domain?
Well, there's that. Yes, as I have been granted a license to steal by the U.S. government itself. With Julian's Recipes, I turned a 20-page book of printed matter into an expanded book of 108 total pages. Why? Because I don't make cheap cash grabs. But anyways, why would anyone pay for anything that they can already get for free inside the public domain? But I'm giving them the added value to buy my books. This is what his book originally looked like on the left, Julian's Recipes. This book came out in 1919, and it looks like it was made with construction paper and maybe it was just stapled together. The binding was just stapled together inside the middle. So I didn't like that brown look to it, that construction paper look, so I gave it a nice green cover. But as you can see, it looks pretty close to the original book, the typography and everything. In the United States, any book that is published before 1927 is in the public domain. For books published between 1927 and 1978, copyrights last for 95 years. So in short, that means with each passing year, the original year that I stated will increase by 1. In 2023, 1928 will go into the public domain. The following is only true regarding laws in the U.S. If you're from another English-speaking nation, I highly recommend you do your own research when it comes to this matter. I did go ahead and do the due diligence, the research about Canada. I'm not going to read any of this stuff now. If you're from Canada, or if you're from the United Kingdom, or if you're from Australia, you can ask me about this and I can give it to you after, but I researched about their public domain as well. But it wouldn't take you nothing but a minute just to get on Google yourself and to find this information. It only took me 60 seconds to find this. All right, so that's the end of part 1. Let's see how much time we have left. All right, we're at 30. All right, I still got another 20 minutes. I think I'm good. I think I can finish this. Business identity theft, public domain, part 2. This is the final story. This story piggybacks off of my first story about licensing the Miles Davis photo from the photographer that took it. So I reissued a book that was originally released in 1917, The Ideal Bartender, and I wanted to keep the cover as close to the original cover as possible. So I recreated a featured design from it. And 1 week before I was scheduled to release this book, I had a rude awakening. I thought the design was purely an aesthetic that was added to the book to make it appear more refined and dandy. As I was carefully looking at it, It struck me that it made an initialism SLCC constructed from a golf putter or a walking cane as the S and L and two horseshoes as the C's. I said, oh shit. All right, that's Leo there. That stands for St. Louis Country Club, the place where the bartender who authored the book concocted the drinks. It's a bona fide logo branding the original book as theirs. So this is the cover of the original book. You guys might not be able to see that. Let me see if I can point out some stuff real quick. Do I have that pen? No, I don't. Here, there is an S that kind of wraps around. So that makes the S for Saint, and then there's an L that is made with a golf putter here, or that could be a walking cane. I don't know what that is, golf putter, walking cane, whatever. So you can see the letters SL, and then there's two horseshoes, 1, 2, that make the letters CC. So together it stands for St. Louis Country Club. I only noticed that at the very last minute. And I went to their website and I saw that they have the same logo on their website that is still active today. So with 1 week remaining, I didn't have enough time to contact them, so I was forced to change the design last minute. I ended up using the Fleur de Lis lily from the St. Louis City flag as the replacement. So there goes the original book on the left. And on the right-hand side, this is the cover that I originally wanted to use using that logo. But I had to shelve that logo, unfortunately. And there goes the original logo that I wanted to use on the left. And then this is what I changed it to on the right, just to circumvent not having to use that logo. After publishing the book, I still wanted to reach out to the country club to see if I could procure the use of the logo, whether it be a courtesy or a license. So I sent off some snail mail to the address that was on the website, because you can always change the cover of the book later down the road should you be granted permission. The law allows me to reprint anything inside the book and sell it for monetary gain because it is in the public domain. But the gray area that comes into play is because what does that mean for the cover of the book with the logo on it that's still active in 2022 that was made back in the 19th century? So I don't know about that. The book I was going to republish is such a niche and under the radar book that honestly, I probably could have just put out the book with that logo on my cover and kept quiet. I could have lived out my life and nobody would know otherwise. But unfortunately, as a real man, I only operate on integrity, so I didn't want to do that. I sent a letter to the St. Louis Country Club asking them if I could use the letter, and they sent me back a reply half a year later, and they said, Mark, sorry for the delay in responding to your request. On advice of counsel, St. Louis Country Club is not interested in relinquishing our rights to our logo. Please do not release any editions of the book in question with our logo on it. I apologize for any inconvenience this will cause you. Sincerely, name redacted. So I never got to use it. It's okay that I didn't get granted permission to use their logo because I learned that the place is long considered a pinnacle of WASP culture in St. Louis and has a history of anti-Semitism and racism. So they can keep their logo and I'd rather not associate myself with them. But those are not my words. That comes from this article, Dinner at the Club Darling, St. Louis Magazine. And another article called Clubs Changing in the Aftermath of Shoal Creek. So, question, how could I say these things after my libel story? Very easy. I have my First Amendment right in America, so I can exercise my free speech to talk about how I feel about the St. Louis Country Club. And those claims are already well documented inside those two articles in the press in America, so they can suck it. All right. But the real question again is this. If here is the conflict with the license to steal from the public domain. Imagine that this country club didn't have a bad reputation and I still wanted to use the logo because the book as a whole is in the public domain. Does that include the logo that's on the cover of the book? Do I have the right to use that? I tried to find an answer online, but I just couldn't try as I may. but there is somewhere I know I could go to where I can get this answer. Do you know where that is? Lawyer. Right. To a copyright lawyer. So, did I inquire with the copyright lawyer? And the answer is no, as I believe the expense of finding my answer is not worth the cost. I would rather just do it the free way than have to pay more money. I'm happy with this. It doesn't matter either way. My original goal was to re-release this book for as little cost expense-wise to me if I could not do it for free. So ultimately, whatever the answer is that's out there somewhere, it doesn't pertain to me that much. Here's the conclusion to all four of these independent stories. If I had just told you this from the very beginning, I could have saved you all about 50 minutes of time, but the answer itself isn't very fascinating, and people don't listen, so you need to hear it to, kind of pick up on the nuances and to keep it inside of your head. The conclusion is use common sense. When in doubt about anything law-related, you have only 3 choices that could be made. 2 of them are smart, and 1 of them isn't a smart choice. You can ask a legal entity like a lawyer or attorney. When in doubt, just don't do it. Or take a gamble and risk everything and do it. And that's the end of it. All right, I think we have some time for questions. If anybody, yes, sir.
I think I kept wondering on your whiskey, but if you'd only published it in the U.S.,
yes,
but you lived here, would the situation have been different?
yeah, I've been here for 19 years. But if I only published it in the U.S., I would have included those 3 listings inside of there.
But you would have been not worried about Japanese libel law at all.
No.
Because it's in the U.S.
That's right. Absolutely correct. Right. Anybody else? Don't be sure.
Story.
Yeah.
Would you have done something differently if you had your time again? Like the problem was you got the cease and desist letter.
Yes. There is something that I wanted to do.
So it's basically the photograph, right?
Yes.
All you're missing was a photograph.
Yes. All I was missing was a photograph, but it wouldn't make sense because I have a photograph for every single whiskey of the 50 whiskeys that I review in the book, and then just to have a blank space for these 3, it wasn't going to look good. So I really needed a photograph to go there. This is what I could have done, but it wouldn't have been so great for the reader. I could have redacted a lot of stuff, and I could have just drew an original image there of a Fox whiskey to put on those pages, but
Just to piss them off, basically.
yeah, just to piss them off. They would know that I'm talking about them, and maybe the public, hardcore whiskey aficionados would know that I'm talking about them, but the full public at large wouldn't know. But they couldn't do anything about that because everything has been redacted. And
In terms of payback, I mean, social media is probably the best option anyway.
Yes, but as social media proved inside that whiskey group of mine that has the 5,000 members, everybody already knows that they've been bottling scotch. So I don't need to just pound that home. Everybody already knows.
But
yes.
It seems according to the law, if you do that on social media, you are still liable.
Yeah, you are still liable. So
if it is noticed on social media,
yeah,
you make a thing about it, and you're trying to,
well, I got a defense for that. It's not a foolproof defense, but I'm saying they got about 1,000 other people that they can arrest before they get to me. So I feel pretty good. Yes.
Didn't you get a bit of a lucky escape? Because imagine in another world you would have just gone there and taken a picture.
Yes.
You would have printed it as it was with the state.
Yes, you're absolutely right, because I could have went over there. I went to many whiskey distilleries. I went as far as Hokkaido to get photographs. So I could have went to this distillery. It was just kind of a lesser one, and I just didn't want to do it. So I got out of it just by the sheer luck. But I could have took that photo. I could have. All right.
But
yes.
If you just printed what you wanted to say anyway,
yes.
Would there have been a problem with that?
It would have been a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, they would have got me. They would have got me real good. But like I said, had I not had even consulted with them from the get-go, if I would have just put the book out and not said anything, I don't think they would have known.
But the flip side of the legal system in Japan is it's quite hard for them to get to you.
You think so?
Well, it's cumbersome, I'd imagine.
It would be cumbersome, but it would also be cumbersome for me because now I'm starting to go to the court and I have to entertain combating what they're saying about me, and now I have to miss work just to defend myself. I'm not willing to lose pay just for a book that cost me, I don't know, about $1,000 to make. Yeah, it's easier just to walk away from the fight. So I said somewhere inside of there, I could either feed my ego and release the book. Wait, what did I say? I want to read that again.
Feed your ego or feed yourself.
Or I could feed myself. I would rather feed myself. Thank you for remembering. You got a good head on you. That's $1 million head there. All right.
So I think the logo issue that you were having.
Yes.
I wonder if that's more of a trademark issue than like a copy or like a.
Yes.
Right. So like I'm wondering if it's like using Coca-Cola or something like that.
Yes. It could either be it could either be a trademark or a registered trademark.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't want to chance it. That was a big gamble there, so I just walked away from it.
Right.
And it made it easier to walk away once I learned about the history. Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah.
But had their history been pristine, I really wanted to use that logo. Just, I'm trying to have some identity there so people can identify.
Yeah.
So there's that. All right. Anybody else?
What about, these are stories about stuff that's happened in your previous publications. What about future publications and potential issues that you think you might run into?
Well, the answer is just to use the common sense.
Specifically, what you think you might run into that you
I like the way that I've been doing things, and I don't see any reason to change it. If there's something that I want, I'm going to ask the company, can I have it? If they say no, I'm just going to be respectful and not use it. I think that kills all the problems that could arise, instead of just doing it and then asking questions later. Yeah, that's what I mean by common sense. There's that. All right. If there's, come on. Yeah, bring it on.
Some comments from, I assume there's some novelists in the room.
Yes.
I'm wondering if the libel laws are as hard on novelists here as on journalists. Because I'm writing a novel.
Well, what are you including inside the novel that could be based on reality that somebody's going to have a problem with?
So I work in the electronics industry. I'm writing a novel. I'm going to publish it in the U.S. first.
Yes.
Based on something that happened to me. I was
Yes.
looking for a huge electronics company, and they sent me to a subsidiary, a very small one that was connected to the Yakuza.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
And it was very scary and serious, but I'm turning it into a comedy and changing everything I can.
That's,
And making people a mix of characteristics
Yeah.
and places. But I'm still like,
I-
the guy's dead that was a Yakuza, so I'm not.
well, I mean, if there's no way that he could come back and get some retribution against you for writing about him, then you're pretty safe.
What I have, though, is I'm changing everything, but I can't change one thing, which is the little subsidiary made audio earphones, which
Yes.
is so funny, and I have so much.
No, of course you can
detail.
change that. Don't say that they made audio. No, don't say that they made earphones. Say that they made microphones or something. Just change it.
That's the one thing I can't.
You can't change it?
That's what I'm saying.
Why can't you change it? You can change anything.
Because I know so much about that stuff.
Yes.
The story much better.
Right,
I'm
right.
trying to change everything else, but I'm wondering, is that a no-no? I'm just want to get opinions.
This is an opinion.
Yeah,
It's not professional, but
Well, how many
that's one trail that could. Okay, he's telling me I should wrap up.
How many possible options are there to identify that company?
Yeah, there could be half a dozen at least.
Yeah, that's the one factor that could lead back to them.
And isn't that where you get that disclaimer of this is not based off any real persons, blah, 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 blah from?
As long as you change enough of the other things, that's my research I've done so far. Just wondering if anyone's ever written about real life before to turn it into a novel. I'm in that situation now.
If your book becomes like a bestseller and it's translated into Japanese and made into a movie,
then you can change it.
I'll be on the island.
So the movie changed into a
It
microphone.
might come to the attention of the company, but otherwise I think they would probably never
All right, so we'll discuss it on break time. But anyways, I got to allow the next speaker to come in and get all set up. But thank you for your time today. It's been much appreciated. Thank you very much. Yeah, and sorry for the sunglasses. I didn't sleep that well last night. Morpheus, the god of dreams, he was not so kind to me as I had insomnia. Let's see.